Hey everyone, it's actually Jeb Bush, and welcome back to yet another episode of NBA SoRare Steals. Now, the criteria we use to determine a SoRare Steal is to look at the full season, big picture, and find player cards that we think are undervalued because they either have the potential to get a massive increase in minutes or assume a bigger and more key role on their team throughout the course of the season. Whether that's because of injuries or player development, or a team trying to tank or a potential trade, all of those create opportunity, and we want to make sure we can take full advantage of those possible pumps. Now, if you're into DFS or fantasy sports and you don't have an NBA SoRare account, you can go ahead and click my affiliate link right here to create one. By using that link, you'll get 20 free common cards, which you can use for the free common contests. And if you're really enjoying NBA SoRare and want to participate in maybe some of the limited contests, maybe have a little more control over your lineup because you're the one that's buying the pieces. If you buy 5 cards on the live auction marketplace, you'll get a sixth one for free, but that's only if you use my link, which you can also find in the description below. Additionally, if you can make sure you hit that like button and are subscribed to the channel, it's something really easy you can do that actually helps me out a lot. It allows me to continue to create content like this. And as you know, we're trying to crank out 30 of these. And now that we got all that out the way, let's take a look at the Chicago Bulls. All right, so we're on SoRare data as always, and the first player we're going to go ahead and take a look at is Vujovic. Now, Vujovic is a very interesting case. He's a player that a lot of people kind of have a sour taste in their mouth just because, he was an all-star when he was with the Magic. He went to the Bulls and since then has really not been what they thought they were trading for. I think pretty much everyone now agrees that the Orlando Magic won that trade by a landslide. It wasn't even close. So I do think that Vujovic tends to be undervalued when it comes to fantasy, just because this player is not the player that the Bulls wanted, and that he's kind of faded from like all-star, like elite center talk, doesn't mean that he doesn't put up a solid DFS number. So right off the bat, let's take a look at his scores, and we can see that like I said, Vujovic puts up some numbers. We see a 54 here, a 37, a 34, a 39, a 48, a 51. Here's another 50, 47, 51, 46, 54. Like you can see consistently, he is hitting 50s. That's not the easiest thing to do. It's hard to find a player that's not a superstar and is going to cost you potentially hundreds of dollars that can consistently hit a 50 or above in DFS. And Donovan Mitchell is like $90 right now, and he'll drop a 40 or a 50 pretty consistently. But right now, you could also just get a Vujovic for $30, which is basically a third of the price, and he might be able to do the same thing for you. So for that reason, I think Vujovic is a SoRare steal here. I think he's a player maybe you can watch unless you're like really looking to get a player for a lineup where you need an MVP or a higher cap player. I think this is definitely a player you can watch. He hasn't always been the healthiest, so he might have a minor injury, take a couple games off, and we'll see his price dip. And that might be a great chance to go and scoop one. But we've seen him go for like under 20 pretty consistently here and over here. And even over here, we're seeing him go for under 30, barely under 20. So there definitely will be opportunities to get him for around 20 as opposed to 30. So, like I said, this is not someone you rush out and buy 10 of immediately, but I do think he's kind of a sneaky play. I just think a lot of people, when you think of Vujovic, you think of like disappointment, basically. But that doesn't mean that he can't perform when it comes to DFS. So that's my first steal right here, Vujovic. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. The next person on my list is Andre Drummond. Now, Andre Drummond is a backup center. He's a player that's definitely past his prime as opposed to when he was playing with the Detroit Pistons and was considered kind of an elite center. But I think Andre Drummond is a decent pickup for a couple of reasons. One, we just mentioned that Vujovic, has injury troubles. Well, every time he sits on the bench, if Andre Drummond's healthy, who he also has some injury troubles, like I said, he's definitely past his prime, but he has been pretty healthy lately. He hasn't missed a bunch of games. He'll get that starting role. And that just is an increase in minutes. As you can see, he's got a cap of 20 here. He's averaging about 15 minutes per game. And if we look at his scores, you see that he put up a 30 here. He put up a 40 here. He put up a 40 here, 37. Andre Drummond is not going to deliver at least half the time, which is one of the reasons his cap stays low, which is, a blessing and a curse. You don't have to use a ton of your cap budget in order to play him, but, you're really throwing a dart here. But at the end of the day, Andre Drummond is a very good rebounder. He's very good at cleaning up. He can score. He can get blocks, which we've said before, blocks are obviously important. And when you're big and tall and have a good wingspan, you have that potential to put up a 3, 4, 5 block game. And that's 15 points. It's a huge, huge difference maker. And if we take a look at his price, he's going for about $10. You can probably throw in an offer for like 8 or 7 and maybe even be able to snipe him. Like, this is a very cheap dart throw. I don't think he drastically decreases in price unless he has a season ending injury, but that's the case with all these cards. I do think when I'm building lineups, I tend to give the edge to a big man because of the value that blocks hold. So whenever I see a big man that's cheap, that has block potential and can put up a solid points and rebound stat line, it piques my interest. And I just think he's worth watching, maybe seeing if you need to squeeze in a 20-point cap player. He's not the worst. He could do much worse than Andre Drummond. So he is number 2 on the list. Number 3 on the list, we have Alex Caruso. Now, Caruso is probably the player in this video that I am the least excited about. Out of these 4, if I was buying all 4, I would buy Caruso last for a couple reasons. He's had some injury problems. He's a pretty durable player. He's not injury prone, I would say, but he is a guard who is very athletic and relies on a lot of his explosiveness and athleticism and hustle. And as a result, that's how you can get injured. When you're jumping super high for blocks or dunks, when you're diving across the floor, it increases your probability of getting injured. So, that's the double-edged sword that Caruso is. If we take a look at his price real quick, we can see kind of about the same price as Drummond, around $10. You could probably snipe him for 8, 9. But once again, this is why I would kind of choose Drummond over Caruso. Another point is that while Caruso is a very good defender and can rack up some steals, as we can see, he's averaging 1.7 this year, which is pretty good. And steals are worth 3 points, just like blocks. They're worth more than traditional DFS. So if you can get a player that is averaging high on steals, the only problem is, and this just might be my own bias, so feel free to correct me in the comments, but I feel like relying on steals is a little more risky than relying on a player to get, 3, 4 blocks. The other thing too is, unlike Drummond, who can get an offensive rebound and clean it up for 2 points without having to, make an incredible shot or do anything like that, Caruso relies much more on his jump shot, and he has to defer to people like DeRozan and Levine and Vujovic and let all of them get their touches. And as a result, we can see he's only averaging 5 points for 26 minutes, which is just not great. And let's take a look at his scores real quick. So we see that ceiling capability, 40 with a cap of under 20 is always good. And we can see, if we want to take a look at it even, we got some steals in here where he had 4 steals, which is just a huge boost. But at the same time, that boost only works if you're putting up like an additional 30 points for those steals to go on top of. And so as a result, he played 28 minutes and only ended up with 31 after getting 4 steals. So I know that this video is called SoRare Steals, and this is kind of just seems like me almost bagging on Caruso and saying he's not a steal. But the reason I put him on the list is because I think he is an interesting dart throw. I think he's one of the riskier ones, but as we saw, he could have a 4 or 5 steal night. And if you're able to pair that with a decent like scoring game for Caruso, it's not the worst. It's not the worst play. But if you're able to get him for $5, $6, I feel like why not? He is the backup point guard and the backup shooting guard. Zach Levine is very injury prone. Goran Dragic, I believe, just got injured, which lowers the depth at guard, which, probably gives Caruso a little bump in minutes and increases his role in key situations and different lineups. Like I said, out of the 4 that I picked for the Bulls, he's the one I'm the least excited about, but I do think he's worth mentioning. And if you can scoop him up for cheap, there might be an opportunity some point in this very long season where he is an optimal play. And before we go to our last player, I do want to point out an honorable mention, and that is Zach Levine. I don't feel like we need to dive that deep into it, but right now Zach Levine is playing very poorly. I believe he just went 1 for 16 in his last game and then complained about being benched and not getting to close the game out. He is injury prone. I just feel like a lot of people are very down on Zach Levine right now. You could get his card for around $30 and he can put up some decent numbers. I definitely wouldn't go buy him now, but he's worth watching if he gets injured or if he puts up another bad performance or two. He might be worth scooping up because he is an all-star caliber player, and I feel like he has to figure it out at some point this season. And when he does, he's going to start putting up crazy numbers again, and people are going to get excited and want to add him to their lineup. So, you got to buy low, sell high. So, if you see Levine continue to dip, might not be the worst idea to go grab him. Okay, now we're moving on to the final player on my list, and this is the player I'm most excited about. Maybe this is more of my bias than anything else, but I am talking about AO. Now, I've been pretty high on AO since he came into the league. Last year, I think he has a pretty high ceiling, and for him to grab the starting point guard role this year, I think says a lot as a second year player. Additionally, like we talked about before, Zach Levine is injury prone, who's a guard. Goran Dragic just got injured, who's a guard. So as the Bulls have less guards to choose from, AO will not only get more minutes, not too much more because it looks like he's averaging around 30, but he could get an extra 5 or so added to that average to bump it up. But he's also going to be in situations where he is able to look for his shot more because someone like Zach Levine is not on the court jacking up 16 shots and missing them all. As a result, I actually really like AO. I also like the price that he's at right now. As you can see, he was kind of getting up there in price for a bit. He's a young player, very exciting, but since then the hype has really died down as the Bulls in general have sucked. And now you can get AO for like $13. And I know he's a second player. He's not a rookie. Rookies are a little more exciting because, they got the rookie badge and, there's just unlimited potential. But I do think AO has a lot of room to grow. I think he's a player that is not going to make massive, massive jumps, but I just think he's going to continue to improve. And as the Bulls continue to trust him more and give him a bigger role, hopefully he can continue to perform. So for $13, I'm going to take AO over Andre Drummond or Alex Caruso, just because, I think he has potential not only as a scoring threat, but as a facilitator. Although, as you can see, this doesn't really necessarily reflect it, averaging less than 3 assists a game. but I do think he is a very talented point guard, and him getting the starting role that young when you have a Caruso, a Goran Dragic, says a lot about him. Says a lot. And if we take a look at his scores here, he hasn't done anything spectacular. So probably why his card is only $13. He does have a cap of 18. And as we can see, he's kind of peppering around that, which once again, less exciting for SoRare because you almost want very serious fluctuations with super low lows and super high highs, which keeps the cap low but gives you that ceiling potential. But I don't know. Like I said, this might be just my bias more than anything. I'll do though. We do see a couple 30s here, and almost a 40 right there. Yeah, I don't know. This might be my bias more than anything. This might be a miss looking down the road, but I really like Ao as a player, and I feel like he has a lot of potential. And if the Bulls continue to suck and decide to tank, Ao is one of the players they will continue to develop and have on the court, as opposed to, a DeMar DeRozan, a Zach LaVine, a Vujovic, who will probably start to rest a lot more. I don't think they're ready to admit that they need to tank, and maybe they don't, but I definitely think the Bulls are riding that high they had last year and might have to face the music sooner rather than later. All right, that about does it for the Chicago Bulls. While these players were not as maybe exciting to look at as a team like the Nets or the Hawks, I do think the Bulls have a very interesting situation. And we'll see down the road how it plays out. But, it right now feels 50-50, like if they're going to decide to tank or make a playoff push. And, based on wherever the team goes, it'll do a lot for these cards. Like I said, I think AO is an interesting choice because if they tank, they let him play and develop, and he might get a lot more minutes. But if they make that playoff push, he might be a key piece to that too, because I do think he has that potential. So anyway, I think that about does it for this video. Remember, if you don't have an NBA SoRare account, you can create one using the link below in the description. Remember to go ahead and like the video, make sure you're subscribed, and leave a comment. Let me know if there are any steals I missed on the Bulls, or if I'm overvaluing someone like Ao, which is very possible indeed. But thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Feel free to check out the other videos in this series and join me next time where we take a look at the SoRare steals on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Please clap.